The air in Hollywood right now feels like the moment just before a massive earthquake hits. Quiet, tense, and full of people pretending everything is normal while the ground is already cracking beneath their feet. Because what just happened behind the glass walls of Netflix is not just another celebrity contract dispute. This is the moment the entire Harry and Meghan empire reportedly started collapsing from the inside, and the most humiliating part is that the call allegedly came from inside Netflix itself. For years, the world was sold a very carefully crafted story. Two brave royals escape a cold institution, move to California, sign massive deals, and build a billion-dollar media empire while telling their truth. That was the brand. That was the product. That was the business model. But according to explosive industry reports, the people writing the checks have now completely lost patience with the people cashing them. And the name at the center of this storm is Ted Sarandos, the man who controls what lives and what dies on Netflix. When someone like him stops taking your calls, Hollywood doesn't just whisper. Hollywood understands the message immediately, and the message being whispered through studio offices, agency hallways, and Montecito dinner parties is simple. The deal is dying, the patience is gone, and the relationship is broken beyond repair. The shocking part isn't just that Netflix executives were unhappy, it's how unhappy they allegedly were. Insiders describe repeated creative meetings where things did not go the way Meghan wanted, and instead of negotiating, instead of collaborating, instead of playing the Hollywood game the way every producer must, she would reportedly get up and walk out of meetings, sometimes disappearing from Zoom calls and leaving executives sitting there waiting in silence while millions of dollars were on the line. In Hollywood, there is one rule that matters more than anything. You can be difficult, you can be demanding, you can be dramatic, but only if you are making the company insane amounts of money. If you are not delivering hits, you do not get to act like a studio boss. And this is where the entire situation reportedly started going very wrong. Because Netflix didn't just sign them for interviews and documentaries about their own lives. Netflix paid for a production powerhouse. They paid for documentaries, scripted shows, children's programming, films, an entire pipeline of content. Instead, what they allegedly kept getting were projects connected, directly or indirectly, to the same story. The royal family, the royal exit, the royal pain, the royal drama. Over and over again, the same narrative packaged in different ways. At some point, executives reportedly began calling it the same story in different wrapping paper. And then came the detail that made executives furious. According to insiders, Harry and Meghan allegedly began bypassing their assigned Netflix executives, the actual people hired to manage their projects, and started contacting Ted Sarandos directly, texting him, calling him, sending requests straight to the top of the company as if he were their personal project manager. In corporate America, that is not just unusual. That is a massive breach of professional hierarchy. That is the kind of move that makes an entire management team feel disrespected and undermined. And when an entire management team feels disrespected, they stop fighting for you inside the company. And when nobody inside the company is fighting for you anymore, your contract is already dead, it just hasn't been buried yet. Then something even more humiliating allegedly happened. Quietly, without announcements, without press releases, without any dramatic public statement, posters of Harry and Meghan were reportedly removed from Netflix office areas. Not with a big meeting, not with a public decision, just quietly taken down. In Hollywood, that's how they tell you it's over. Not with a phone call, not with a meeting, with silence and disappearing posters. And as this professional relationship reportedly started collapsing, another problem started growing behind the scenes: money. Because the lifestyle they built in California was never a normal celebrity lifestyle. It was a royal level lifestyle without royal level financial infrastructure behind it anymore. A massive Montecito mansion, private security teams, PR firms in multiple countries, lawyers in the UK and the US, staff, travel, production teams, branding teams, consultants, designers, managers, agents, assistants. This is not a normal monthly budget. This is a machine that burns money constantly, every single day, whether new deals come in or not. Spotify already ended. Netflix now reportedly pulling back. And suddenly the question becomes very simple and very terrifying. If the big deals stop, who pays for the lifestyle? Oh, and this is where insiders say the real pressure started, not just professionally, but personally. Inside the house, behind the gates, where no cameras are supposed to see what's really happening. Because when money pressure hits, blame follows. And when blame starts, happens? Cracks appear. And when cracks appear, people start protecting themselves instead of protecting the marriage, the brand, or the story. Sources began whispering that Harry felt Hollywood was never his world, never his system, never his game. He came from a world where your role is assigned at birth, your income is structured, your future is planned decades in advance. Hollywood is the opposite. In Hollywood, you are only as valuable as your last successful project. And if your last project didn't perform, people stop answering your calls very quickly. Meghan, on the other hand, reportedly believed Hollywood was supposed to be their empire, the place where they would become global media power players, billion-dollar producers, cultural influencers. But Hollywood is not impressed by titles. Hollywood is impressed by numbers, view numbers, revenue numbers, subscription numbers, profit numbers. And when the numbers don't match the attitude, Hollywood turns very cold very fast. But the most explosive rumor, the one spreading fastest through media circles, is not just that Netflix is distancing itself from Harry and Meghan, it's who Netflix might be looking at instead. Because while one royal couple is reportedly losing deals, another royal couple is rising in global popularity, global approval, and global influence: William and Catherine. And the rumor spreading through the industry right now is almost unbelievable. Netflix may be far more interested in working with the future king and queen than with the couple who already signed the deal. Think about the humiliation of that for a second. The same company that paid you $100 million, now possibly looking at the brother you publicly attacked, to replace you with the monarchy you said you escaped. That is not just business. That is personal. That is reputation. That is power. And if that deal ever happens, it would send one brutal message to the entire world: the royal brand works better with the royals who stayed than the royals who left. And that realization, if it becomes reality, could change everything. Because now this is no longer just about contracts. This is no longer just about Hollywood. This is no longer just about media deals. Now this becomes a war about the only thing Meghan reportedly still considers her ultimate asset: the title. Because if the Hollywood deals disappear, if the media empire collapses, if the marriage starts falling apart, there is only one thing left that still has global power, global recognition, and global value. And that is not Netflix. That is not Spotify. That is not Hollywood. That is the Duchess title. And insiders say that is where the next battle is going to begin. Because behind the collapsing deals, the disappearing Hollywood invitations, and the growing financial pressure, a far more dangerous conversation was reportedly starting to happen quietly in legal offices, palace corridors, and private Montecito rooms. The conversation about what happens if the marriage itself does not survive the collapse of the empire they built together. And this is where the story stops being a Hollywood failure story and starts becoming a royal survival story. Because according to high-level legal whispers coming out of Los Angeles and London, the biggest fight in a potential separation would not be about the house, the money, or even the media deals. The real war would be about one thing and one thing only: the title. Because the title is not just a name. The title is a brand. It is global recognition. It is status. It is market value. It is the difference between being a former actress and being a duchess. And that difference is worth millions, maybe hundreds of millions, over a lifetime of branding, books, speaking deals, and media projects. And insiders say Meghan understands that better than anyone. The reported strategy being whispered in legal circles is cold, calculated, and incredibly strategic. The word title, the Her Royal Highness, is not the important part in America. Most Americans don't even understand what word means. But Duchess, that word sells. That word opens doors. That word gets speaking fees, brand deals, interviews, magazine covers, and invitations. So the alleged plan is simple. If everything collapses, keep the title at all costs. History actually provides the blueprint. After divorcing Prince Charles, Diana lost the Hurt but kept Princess of Wales. Sarah Ferguson lost Hurt but kept Duchess of York. So legally, there is precedent for a divorced royal wife keeping a title connected to her marriage. But this is where the story reportedly takes a dramatic turn, because Prince William is said to be absolutely against the idea of Meghan keeping and commercially using a royal title after everything that has happened. And unlike before, William is not just the angry brother anymore. He is the future king. And future kings think in terms of institution, not emotion. And according to palace insiders, William's view is very simple. Titles are not personal property. Titles are tools of the monarchy. If someone is no longer serving the monarchy, no longer representing the monarchy, and actively making money while criticizing the monarchy, then allowing them to keep and use a royal title becomes an institutional risk. So the reported discussion happening behind palace doors is not just about removing Hurt. It's about something much bigger, removing the Sussex title entirely. And this is where things become become incredibly complicated because removing a royal dukedom is not a simple family decision. It requires parliament. It requires legal process. It requires political support. But it can be done. It has been done before under the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. If that ever happened, Harry would stop being the Duke of Sussex. And if Harry stops being the Duke of Sussex, Meghan automatically stops being the Duchess of Sussex. Problem solved, right? Not exactly. Because British royal title rules are old, very old, and very strange. And one of those strange rules creates a situation that palace lawyers are reportedly very worried about. Because if Meghan loses the Duchess title but remains the divorced wife of a prince, she could legally be styled as Princess Henry of Wales. Now, to British aristocracy experts, that name sounds technical and formal and tied to old rules. But in America, in media, in Hollywood, in branding, that becomes one very simple, very powerful name, Princess Meghan. And palace officials reportedly understand exactly how dangerous that would be from a branding perspective. Because Princess Meghan in American media would be explosive. It would be Diana-level branding power. It would be magazine covers, interviews, documentaries, speaking tours, all built around the word princess. So now the palace is reportedly facing a bizarre strategic dilemma. If they remove the Duchess title, they might accidentally create Princess Meghan. And Princess Meghan could be an even bigger global brand than Duchess Meghan ever was. This is why insiders say this situation has turned into a silent war of strategy, timing, and leverage. Nobody is making sudden moves yet because one wrong legal move could create an even bigger problem. And while this silent royal chess match is happening in the background, Harry and Meghan reportedly started making very controversial international moves that triggered anger in several countries, especially regarding their trips that critics are now calling unofficial royal tours. These trips look like royal tours. They include security, motorcades, official style events, media coverage, speeches, charity visits, but they are not official royal tours. They are private trips connected to business, media, and brand building. But the monarchy survives by playing the long game. And right now, according to the people watching this very closely from inside media, inside Hollywood, and inside palace circles, the long game has already started. And the very first sign that the long game is in motion is simple and chilling. Hollywood is getting quieter, deals are getting fewer, invitations are slowing down, and the palace is saying absolutely nothing. And in royal strategy, silence is never empty. Silence means the decision has already been made. The only question now is when the world finds out.